Hi, folks. Welcome to Leadership and Innovation Unlocked with Inclusive Collective, where we bring you news and analysis of the latest in people and workplace culture and share stories and learnings of leaders and organizations driving performance and innovation through inclusion. I am your co host, Dr. Nadia Butt, a workplace culture strategist and talent development consultant. And I am joined by my wonderful co host, Rob Hadley, a people and culture strategist specializing in operational excellence, transformations, and people analytics. Rob, welcome back this week.
Dr. Nadia, how are you?
I'm well.
You're doing well? Hey, Nadia, I was just thinking in our second, was our third episode of this season.
Of the season.
We
Yep.
broke for a few months last year, right? And you went away before that break. You were Nadia, and you came back. You were Dr. Nadia, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
defended, as they say. And then this year we broke a few weeks for you to get married, if I
Yes.
recall.
That's right.
So I was thinking, there's nothing left, right? There's nothing, no big things coming.
Well, no, not right as of right now, but you never know.
Like, we're on for forever now, right? This also made me think that I should do more with my life. I should have more milestones. You've been very busy, but the reason I was thinking about this is that you are Dr. Nadia, and today we are welcoming Dr. Jonathan.
Yes, I love it.
Today we are delighted to welcome Dr. Jonathan Ashong-Lamptey. Dr. Jonathan, as he is known, is the founder of the Element of Inclusion and the host of the world's longest-running inclusion podcast, trusted by HR leaders in 166 countries. He holds a PhD from the London School of Economics, has advised clients including Meta, LinkedIn, and NatWest, and is on a mission to help 1 million people make their workplace inclusive. It's such an honor to have Dr. Jonathan with us today. His podcast and newsletter are personal favorites. Dr. Jonathan, welcome to Leadership and Innovation Unlocked.
What a pleasure. And what a lovely introduction as well. That made me sound so cool.
You are so cool.
That's the short version.
Yeah, it's a short version, and you got a fan club over here. Dr. Jonathan, it really is such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to just dive in because there's so much to talk about. So you've recently written and spoken about AI as an inclusion problem. You know, how people that may not have been pro DE&I or even or were even hostile to DE&I are now thinking like, what's going to happen to me? How, where do I fit in? How do I fit in? Can you talk about how we should think about AI in the context of inclusion?
Well, there's several directions.
Is that a loaded question?
Yeah. Spot the doctor, right? We'll pick it up from a couple of places. Look, the first thing is I'm obviously in the right place, leadership and innovation. So I think it's important that we talk about this. And I think you're well placed to ask the question. So first off, let's talk about inclusion first. When I think of inclusion, we think of that as a systematic business strategy to ensure that everyone can share the same advantages and benefits. Now, the way we describe that comes from the Shaw model of inclusion. So it talks about diversity and it talks about your ability to belong. But practically, when I'm talking to clients, when I'm talking to leaders, when I'm talking to people like your audience, we say everyone can perform, everyone can belong, everyone can reach their potential. So that's how we think of inclusion. And so it's important to frame it in that way for what's coming next. Because when we think about AI, like what are you hearing? You're hearing people say jobs are being destroyed
Eliminated.
or gone. And I think in the past 2 weeks, we've had examples of HR departments either being completely eliminated or reduced by 25%. These are the headlines that we're hearing. We're hearing about Amazon losing people, Meta losing people. So the idea is AI reduces headcount, right? That it makes us more productive. We need less people to do it. These are the very basic tropes and examples that we're hearing. And so getting back to what you said about it's not a technology problem, AI is an inclusion problem. Some of the people who weren't really that concerned about fairness, about being included, about not getting promoted, because those things were often described about so-called marginalized groups, so-called
Right.
underrepresented groups.
Right.
Now there's people who are either indifferent or didn't care, who are now starting to ask the same questions that we've previously been putting around those groups. So now you're hearing people talk about their lived experience, talking about why didn't I get that promotion? Talking about like even the hiring. When you're going for a role, AI is involved, and we're not.
Sure.
I don't imagine we're going to get that technical into the AI. Maybe we can a little bit later. I don't pretend to be an AI technical IT person, but I am very familiar with how it works and how it's impacting people. The challenges are we've got people who are using AI in, let's say we've got HR leaders, they're hiring people and the AI is making the decisions for them. So now we've got 100 people applying for a role. Maybe there's 300. You don't get on the short list. You don't hear why. And so we've got people who previously weren't talking about things like fairness, equality, organizational justice, inclusion, who are now starting to talk about it. So when I say that AI is an inclusion problem, the general feeling is, and what I'm observing, people who didn't care about it, didn't talk about it, are now talking about wanting to be included. And the definition I gave, they want to reach their potential. They want to belong and they want to be able to perform.
So, I'm a longtime listener, right, Dr. Jonathan? We've been listening to you for a few years, and I have to tell you, I feel a little bit misled in this AI era, right? So you've been telling me for many years that an organization's most important asset are its people, right? and now I hear it's not true, right? Like people are out, robots are in. So I guess my question is, one, why did you lie to me? And I'll let you respond to that first. No, do you think that we'll say that 10 years from now, honestly, right? So, I mean, like the U.S. race for general intelligence really is, in some ways, a race to replace humans in a lot of ways, and certainly in a lot of organizational capacity. So will we say that 10 years from now?
And that's a great question. And that's probably one of the most difficult questions I've had. Reason being, it's something I lead with. I do say that. And one, it's almost a platitude to say it. I believe it, but that belief is being threatened every single day. And so I don't know about you, when you're using AI in any way, shape, or form, there are times when we realize, or certainly me, I realize that I am the bottleneck. It's thinking and performing better than I can. And it's almost as if I'm slowing it down. I suppose we need to think about what we want to achieve and what we are trying to do. Do I think that people are important? Yes, I do. I think we need to reconsider what we mean by organizations and who are the actors in organizations. So something that is very inconvenient to my belief is the fact that in the future, I think we're all agreed that organizations are going to become smaller. I also think that means that there's an opportunity for there to be more organizations. So inclusion may not be in your organization. You may be in another organization that's smaller. I also think, and this is a weird one, but these are claims, beliefs of mine, but I'm seeing them play out in real life.
Sure.
I'm seeing that teams are getting bigger. So organizations are getting smaller, teams are getting bigger. That should not make sense, except for the fact that some of the members of the team aren't human anymore. Right? So we've got one person who's maybe doing the job of 5 people. We've got, whether it's a bot or a digital twin, however you're describing it, an agent who is an active member of your team. You talk to it as if you would. You might not even know. And many of us are speaking with agents without even knowing that they are non-human.
Right.
And so I do believe people are important. Are they the most important part of organizations? The people who are struggling will say that they're not. But I think it's an opportunity for us to now develop new skills. And one of the things that we were talking about it briefly just before we started to record was about this AI fluency. I think most people, when they think about AI fluency, they're thinking about how you use the tools. How can I do my job better, faster? Whereas the way my frame of looking at this, and this is a framework that was actually developed by researchers who are now working with Anthropic, the people behind Claude. their 4-step process. I always got it written down here: delegation, description, discernment, and diligence.
Mhm.
It's all about how humans think about using the AI, as opposed, and this is the human work, which is the thinking before you actually get into it. What I'm finding is too many people are delegating their thinking. To get back to your question, Rob, I think those are the most vulnerable people. I think those are the people who are going to find themselves not being the most important part of an organization. So there's still
I love that.
critical thinking required. I am
Mhm.
finding that. I'm observing that. When I speak with people, I would say the biggest trend that I'm seeing is people not doing that. They're not thinking, they're delegating, and sometimes like completely outsourcing what they should be doing. And we can talk about what that means for HR. So they're getting someone else to do it instead of doing it themselves. And
Sure.
this is leading to a lot of the AI slop. You
Oh,
see
I
it
love
online.
that AI slop.
Oh yeah. You see it
You know,
online, but we're seeing it in organizations, though.
yeah, and Dr. Jonathan, this brings up I was just having this conversation with my husband last night about like AI hallucinations and of course the AI bias that goes into when you're prompting or you're having, and I'm not an AI technical expert either, but when you're prompting AI for some sort of production of work or for some sort of process and the output might be an error or it has a whole lot of bias wrapped up into it. And so you mentioned sort of like the skill development or the critical thinking, maybe doing build having folks, build skills in different ways or even think differently will be critical. But I'm curious, you mentioned HR leaders and just in general leaders when we think about AI and AI transformation and the lack of what we're observing in strategy related to AI. What should leaders in HR folks, what should they be doing as it relates to their people, as it relates to competency and behavioral, right? Just behaviors that are associated with AI in the workplace, using kind of this new technology that may not that brings along some slop, like you mentioned.
Well, what I find, I think AI is the HR leader's dream. It's the potential dream come true. And
Mm,
so, what do I mean by that? If one of my biggest challenges and issues with the DEI space or people who say they're trying to make a workplace more inclusive, I'll say, okay, like, what have you done? What's happened? Like, what progress have you made? And typically, when you speak to people, they talk about raising awareness, they talk about all these events that they've put on.
yeah.
And then you say, okay, but, and I'm a former accountant, right? So I'm going to push
Mhm.
you. Eventually, I want to hear a number. We hear the stories, the importance of storytelling. I'm completely on board. But sooner or later, we want to hear a number that's gone up or down. Yeah. That's
Sure.
speaking as a former auditor. So I'll
Of
say,
course.
like, give me an example of the impact you've had. Why did it work out? And then they point to things like engagement surveys, net promoter scores, satisfaction, or what I call disparagingly, what are known as happy sheets. Yeah. So you
Mm,
had an
mm, mm.
event. Oh, would you recommend this to one of your colleagues? Would you come again? Did you enjoy that training? Doesn't
Right.
talk. You ask questions about behaviors, and so we don't know anything about behaviors. What we know is our affect, how we feel about this
Sure.
thing. I don't know how if it's made my organization any better or is going to actually benefit my career or others. So AI opens this up. You can now connect the things that you are doing in HR with measurable outcomes
Mm.
in the workplace. So now maybe we can get a little bit closer to turnover intentions
Mm-hmm.
and then turnover,
Yeah.
right? Staff turnover. We can talk about
Sure.
turnover intentions, which may or may not be true, but we can directly do that to staff turnover. What about that department where we did that pilot? We can now see after the training or the intervention that we had, guess what? Productivity went up, absenteeism went down. We
Mm.
can measure that.
Measurement.
The number of outputs, because we all deal in things. If you're a reporter, like we're podcasters, we have podcasts. You can tell we've done a good job because there's a number of podcasts that are out there, right?
Right.
Are we making any more? Are there better quality? How are we judging the quality? Because some of these things are ambiguous. How do we judge the quality of the podcast? As an example, we would to get measures to measure that, and now we can track that over time. So the whole performance management, which is always plan, do, review, gets a lot more sophisticated with AI. And I think HR leaders have a huge opportunity to do that outside of HR speak. You can now start to speak the language of the business. Not enough people are doing that. There are people who are, but not enough. When I actually speak to them and ask them, what are you doing? A lot of the time, it's more and more of the same dashboards. And going back to what you were saying earlier, Doctor, more analysis. Now it's hallucinating, or now there's a lot of circumstantial evidence as well. This happened, that happened. Oh, it must have caused it. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that level of measurement around my podcasting. I think that Nadia and I prefer to measure, are we having a good time? And
it's a level of that enjoyment.
Those are the outcome measures that we're looking at.
Let me offer something for the audience, Rob, as well, right? Just about that, because I want to impress on everyone how impressive you both are to have done this podcast, because it is said, and it's never been disputed, right? So there's no evidence against what I'm about to say, and I think you'll like it. So it is said that most podcasts don't get past episode 3.
Right.
Most people who start one, they don't get past episode 3. When I say most, they say 90%, right?
Right.
And then so there's 10% left. 90% of them don't get past episode 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you've got more than 21 episodes of a podcast, you're in the top 1% of podcasts.
Look at us.
On the measure of just output, just because you continue, just because you did it. And so I say that to remind you, as well as the fun that you are having, Rob, the fun that you are having, Dr. Nadia, it is in the top 1% because you keep going. And that makes a huge difference when not enough people are.
Yeah. No, I love that.
I love that you put some measurement around that. For us too,
no, appreciate it.
Well, I thought
Dr. Jonathan,
like
if you listen,
we may be challenged on these numbers, but hey.
If you listen to Dr. Jonathan's podcast, he's inspiring about a lot more than simply inclusion. So,
that's true.
But I did want to ask this question because I did see an IT leader in a very encouraging way, in a very positive way, telling their employees, now is the time to learn and dedicate time because you can figure out how to increase your productivity by 5 to 10x. And, that seems like that's a very positive message, but it's also a little bit deflating, right? Like, I have to increase my productivity by 5 to 10x. That seems like a lot, right? So what should companies be telling workers about building skills? Like, do you have any thoughts on that? Does that seem like a lot, like 5 to 10x my productivity?
No, I think that's actually entry level. So,
wow.
So a couple of things here. So when we use the word skill, we have to, given the AI context, the skill has a particular meaning with Claude. It's like a command, that a repetitive command. But so I know what you mean by skills, but for the AI people out there who are going to say, start pointing out things out, we know what you mean, right? But number one, another thing I'm observing is the acceptable standard is going up. Mm-hmm. So let me give a crude example, right? So we're builders and we build walls. Okay. Now we could build a 6-foot wall. It took us a day, right? I don't know if that's true, right? Now with AI, you're expected to build 10 walls in one day. Mm-hmm. So what used to every year on year, maybe people got a little bit faster, but it was always one wall. You need to be doing one wall a day. Now you're expected to do 10. So and I want everyone to think about that in terms of what they do. The technology allows you to do that. 10 becomes the standard. So if you're not doing 10, which was impossible 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Right. So if you're not doing 10 now, that's actually grounds for dismissal. And like too many organizations are pushing you to use the AI without thinking about it, in fact, right? Because in this example, it's nice, clear, we know what a wall looks like. But for knowledge workers, they're just producing stuff. And I think it was Amazon. They got rid of they had an AI leadership dashboard, which they recently scrapped because people were just producing and using it. So AI adoption became the tool. And
Uh-huh.
so what happens is we're focused on using the AI as opposed to getting useful outputs and outcomes from it. So we have to be careful about that. But part one, I do agree that we have the opportunity, and I see it as an opportunity to become incredibly productive no matter
Mm.
what we do.
Mhm.
The second thing is, I do think everybody should be learning as much as possible, as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
But that's a kind of default from my basic belief. I don't know if you've heard of this concept of a protean career. So Proteus was a shape-shifting, I think, Greek demigod or something. But it's the idea that you need to be flexible in
Mm.
your
Right.
career. Gone are the days of you're going to work in one organization for 40, 50 years, get a golden watch and a handshake at the end of it. And I think anyone living in the 21st century realizes that. But
Mhm.
the interval between role to role, job to job is shrinking. And I would argue that even careers, that there are people saying with regards to AI that you'll be hired to perform particular tasks in what's looking like entrepreneurship. So the stability around a role is changing. So if I
Sure.
was advising anyone, I would say I wouldn't get too comfortable in a particular role. You should develop I always say this, and I got this from Professor Cal Newport. You should develop rare and valuable skills.
Mm.
Rare
Mm.
and valuable skills. They will always be rewarded in the
I love that.
marketplace.
Yeah.
That's changing all the time. And here's the thing,
Mhm.
people with rare and valuable skills tend to have enjoyable careers, and in the sense that
Mhm.
they enjoy their work and they are respected and liked, and they also have some level of autonomy. This isn't something that happens by itself. And
Mhm.
also, my view, I don't think it's something that you could just be gifted. It's typically something that you have to earn for yourself. So
Sure.
unless you had a super mentor or grew up in a particular environment or you just naturally have these things, which most of
Mhm.
us do not,
Right.
it's something that you have to cultivate over time. He talks about developing career capital. So you have to have deep knowledge. You have to have expertise, but you also need to be flexible. So all of these new tools, Rob, you're right. I think you should be using them. I'm not sure if we should be, hence the protean career. I don't know if we should be relying on organizations to be guiding our future for us
We have
or
to rely
our
on ourselves.
career.
Mm.
And this also links back to the way I talk about inclusion in general, because when you look at the research, if you look at any research, any social science research,
Mhm.
typically it's always problem based. So there's always bad news, right? Here's this horrible thing that's happening. Here's how you understand it. And research in general doesn't typically present a solution. It will
Mhm.
typically say something like policymakers need to be aware. Policymakers need to change. So we've talked about
Right.
the problem, but not
That
the
was my dissertation
There
in
you go.
in a nutshell.
There you go. We don't know how to fix it. It's a big problem. And so I tend to lean on agency.
Mhm.
What can us in this room, what can your audience, what can they do? Next week, they've heard all of this stuff. Great, Dr. Jonathan. What do I do now? That's
Mhm.
what I tend to focus on. And I think the protean career lends itself to that, not relying on your organization to
Mhm.
craft your career for you. It lends itself to that as well. I think society's heading that way. And the way, even when you go into like a retail store, you have to do a lot more. You used to go and do your grocery shopping,
Mhm.
it'll all be packed for you. I don't know in the US, but certainly in the UK, you go into stores, you pack it yourself, you pick the things up yourself. So we are taking on more and more responsibility, and it
Yeah.
starts to get into a whole different realm
That
of
is
Yeah.
that is
discipline.
regional
So,
here.
But
That
it's a
is
challenge.
Rob, I know we need to wrap up, but I have one final
oh,
question if that's
go
okay.
for
And
it.
it's
Yeah.
totally not I think it's away from what you wanted to talk about, but I want to follow up on what you just said because it's related to this and the majority of our listeners are people managers. And
Yes.
I think that as AI is kind of like reshaping the decision making and accountability, even the power dynamics within organizations, I'm curious, like, what leadership capabilities become the most critical for people managers at this standpoint, as it relates to kind of this agency that you're speaking of like owning your own capabilities and the development of capabilities and those rare capabilities. What do you think becomes like most critical in this moment as it relates to AI?
I'm thinking three things, and that's a great question. Actually, I wasn't expecting that. I was completely prepared for a completely different question. um, if I was going to encourage any, I would say number one is critical thinking. Number
Mhm,
two would be proactivity, and the third thing would be, well, I think it's more of a growth mindset. And so
mhm,
the critical thinking is not taking things for granted, challenging information, thinking about how things work and how things have got together. And most of the people who are listening or reading or watching have experience, so they can build on that. I think the people who I observe who are doing very well are critical thinkers. They're also
mhm,
very proactive, so they don't wait to be told. So they offer solutions. So these are the people who see problems and they'll say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So they're incredibly proactive. Once again, all of these things are enabled by AI if you know how to use. I think the critical thinking we need first, and then we
mhm,
can apply it to the AI. Being proactive, now you can spot problems and serve.
mhm.
And then I think the third thing is about, it's a bit naive, but I think it's true. It's the growth mindset. And it goes back to what one of the things that Rob was mentioning earlier. Um, in your earlier question about, oh my gosh, like we're having to do more and it's a problem. I think if
Mhm.
Mhm,
you've got a growth mindset, we expand the pie. I used to teach at the LSE, and in
Mhm.
negotiation, it was a negotiations course. It was an amazing course. And
mhm,
we were taught that everyone can get more of what they want. One, if we're clear about communicating things, but we try and expand the pie. So, as an
right.
example, Rob, you like strawberry cake. I like chocolate cake. There's a cake here, half chocolate, half strawberry. If
Mhm,
we don't communicate and we're going to split it equally, if we cut it one way, I get half of what I like and you get half of what you like. When we
mm,
communicate, guess what? We get
Right.
all of what we like, right? So instead of a
right.
quarter of a cake, we get half a cake.
Yeah.
Now, AI allows us to expand and increase the size of the cake. So
Mm,
it's that growth mindset. I think too
right.
many people think that we're playing a zero sum game. So if someone
Right.
has to gain, someone has to lose. Whereas
Right.
I'm thinking the growth mindset is non zero sum. We can all win, we can all benefit. So
Absolutely.
critical thinking, proactivity, thinking of that non zero sum game. I think everyone who I see, and I would never have thought of it if you hadn't asked me such a great question, they're the ones who are doing that. And it's something I'm trying to adopt, and I would encourage everyone to do it too.
I love that. Thank you for
Love
that.
that. I
Yeah.
hope you're right, Dr. Jonathan. We have to leave it there, but it's so great to have one of my favorite thinkers on inclusion come and talk about AI. Dr. Jonathan Ashong-Lamptey, thanks so much for joining us on Leadership and Innovation Unlocked. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Calm Reflections.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Leadership and Innovation Unlocked. We just finished our conversation with Dr. Jonathan. Dr. Nadia, what did you think of Dr. Jonathan? Any quick
Oh
takeaways
my
for us?
gosh. I swear to God, we could have spoke to him for another hour and a half. I mean, I wrote down a lot of things like just developing the new skills, those kind of rare and valuable skills when you're considering kind of AI and adoption and how to stay relevant in the workplace. Like he just had so many great nuggets that I was like, oh, he needs to come back on and chat with us. What was anything major for you that like stood out?
Look, I wanted to have him on because we're basically an AI podcast at this point. That's basically all
Basically.
we talk about. But he put it in that way that I hadn't seen when he basically says, because of AI, everyone's feeling this need for inclusion and belonging. And so
Mhm.
it's just something that I think it's an important perspective. And I think that
Yeah.
having someone on that's an inclusion expert, talking about AI, I think we're starting to see the melding of those two concepts and topics. So I really, really loved having him on. All right, Dr. Nadia. I'm just going to call you Dr.
Yes.
Nadia from all the time now.
I love it.
Leadership and Innovation Unlocked is a production of Inclusive Collective Media, edited by Ari Mathay. We'd love to hear from you. Send us your feedback about our conversation with Dr. Jonathan at inclusivecollectivepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, follow, rate us wherever you get your podcast, and share us with your friends. Thanks again to our guest, Dr. Ashong-Lamptey of the Element of Inclusion podcast, and thanks to my co-host, Dr. Nadia Butt. Nadia, we'll see you in 2 weeks on June 30th.
Sounds great. Be well.